But if you move forward several generations as you get into the 20th century, really for the past 80 years, and really right now in our generation, experiments in quantum physics have reignited people's religious or mystical imaginations. It's almost impossible to overstate the strangeness and the peculiar nature, the astonishing nature of what's been found in quantum physics experiments, say, over the past 8 decades. On an atomic scale, scientists are finding that particles seem not to appear until they're observed. It's suggestive of all kinds of incredible and extraordinary things, and quantum physicists are rightly concerned that New Agers or people like me should not be seizing upon these things to say, aha, look, evidence of everything the Renaissance occultists were interested in. Because quantum physicists themselves don't understand this material. It's the challenge of our age. It's the mystery of our age.
The brutal fact is that Aspect's experiment confirms quantum mechanics, and it confirms it in this very peculiar situation. So that I'm obliged to admit that the quantum correlations exist in the world, and if we are to explain them and not just accept them as given, if we are to explain them, we are obliged to invoke something like actions going faster than light from one place to another. It's as if somebody was playing a trick on us. It's as if behind the scenes. Imagine, for example, that you have a railway system. We know that the trains cannot go faster than light, but you might, by studying the timetable very carefully, discover that during the night, trains have to be returned to their starting point faster than light. So behind the scenes, extraordinary things are happening which we cannot use personally. And this is a dilemma. I don't think we have a good way of looking at it. It's as if somebody was playing a trick on us. It's as if somebody was playing a trick on us.
Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. This principle is extremely interesting now that we have quantum physics. The idea that we're all just energy vibrating at various speeds and wavelengths is now an accepted scientific theory. In the past, that was pure Hermeticism.
It's a very fundamental question I want to ask as a biologist, because when I look at biological systems, my body, your body, the human body has 100 trillion cells. Each cell, to some people's approximation, does 100,000 activities per second. Every cell is instantly correlated with every cell. A human body can think thoughts, play a piano, kill germs, remove toxins, make a baby all at once. Okay, whilst it's doing that, your biological rhythms are actually mirroring the symphony of the universe, because you have circadian rhythms, seasonal rhythms, tidal rhythms. They mirror everything that's happening in the whole universe. To my mind, the human body is an example, or for that matter, a leaf or any biological of quantum entanglement. Everything is correlated with everything instantly. What would you say to that?
Well, yes, things are entangled, so in some sense messages can travel faster than light instantaneously. Mm-hmm. However, the messages that go faster than light are random messages. Mm-hmm. You can't send Morse code or information through these things. And sometimes we decohere from matter so that we can no longer communicate with other forms of matter. For example, believe it or not, if parallel universes exist, this means that in the quantum realm, Elvis Presley could still be alive. Mm-hmm. He could still be alive in a parallel universe that is vibrating out of phase with our universe. Mm-hmm. So that universe has decohered from our universe. We can no longer interact with the universe of dinosaurs and space aliens and universes where...
But let's come back to a biological system. That's not random. That's very coherent. This biological system, or a system like, say, when you have morphogenesis and differentiation, when a cell keeps dividing, so that, in 50 replications, it's become the 100 trillion cells, which is more than all the stars in the Milky Way galaxy. That requires some kind of non-local correlation, to my mind, theoretically.
Well, these non-local correlations are going to be extremely important in the next few decades, coming from the computer realm of things, first of all, not the biological, because computer power based on silicon will be exhausted in about 10, 15 years. Silicon Valley could become a rust belt. We may have to go to quantum computers. And quantum computers compute on atoms. Forget the transistors of silicon. When Silicon Valley becomes a rust belt, we'll have quantum computers computing on atoms. And then this discussion we're having will determine the gross domestic product of the planet Earth.
So hopefully if you're watching this, you have an understanding of what divination is from a biblical perspective, since that is going to be where I'm coming at this from as a Christian. So I say that to just put it out there on the table so that it makes sense from the beginning. So if you do understand what divination is and why the Bible flatly forbids it, you understand that it is because essentially it is a whole host of practices which involve contacting the demonic realm, the fallen angelic realm. And of course, this is what all of occultism really is. But I've been thinking about this a lot lately as I've just been tumbling further and further down the rabbit hole of quantum mechanics and quantum physics and concepts like quantum entanglement, which is one of the aspects of quantum physics which a lot of New Agers and occultists and mystics do like to point to as evidence of science vindicating ancient esoteric beliefs and mystical beliefs, much to the chagrin of many of the materialistic physicists out there. But nevertheless, this tension continues to kind of mount, and more and more people are looking to quantum physics as this mode by which science and spirituality can be like reconciled. So, but there's that tension there within the scientific community, quote unquote. But the more you look into the origins of quantum physics, the development of this over the long term, going all the way back to Greece and India and ultimately to Babylon, understanding that atomism is indeed an occult teaching, it's an occult idea, it's a doctrine of demons, essentially. From all that I can ascertain, just like evolution and many other teachings, somehow it is very intrinsic to the teachings of pantheism, pantheistic monism and mysticism, and it's filtered down all the way through the millennia, and then taking hold again in the West during the Renaissance with the resurgence of alchemy and Kabbalah and Hermeticism, giving way to the scientific revolution, and then around the turn of the 20th century, we have Albert Einstein and Niels Bohr and this explosion of knowledge, pardon the pun, in nuclear physics and atomic theory, relativity and all that. So if as a concept, this is a demonically seeded concept, this is essentially a repackaged occult worldview, a magical worldview that has been, made to look refined and polished and empirical, being guided all along. I just found it absolutely incredible to be listening to figures such as John Bell, from CERN, whose experiments have been one of the pivotal physics experiments pertaining to the whole quantum entanglement idea being supposedly proven, and actually hearing him say out of his own mouth, it's as if someone's playing a trick on us. And going back to divination and occultism, which obviously, if you understand occultism, and it involves a great deal of experimentation, an experimenting kind of mindset. Obviously, to the mainstream scientists, they wouldn't consider that science. But if we stop and understand that the occultist or the alchemist, they believe that they are interacting with cosmic forces, or interacting with their own subconscious, interacting with the all mind of the universe, or whatever. The important point of the deception is that the practitioner does not believe that he is just being fooled by demonic entities, right? Regardless of whatever he's doing, whether using tarot cards or a Ouija board or rune stones, sigil magic, casting spells, doing rituals, he's conducting an experiment in which he will get a response, right? Hoping to get a response. And again, as Christians, we understand that that response is a physical manifestation from a spiritual being. And so thus we do understand that in certain limited ways, the demonic realm can interact with the 3D physical universe and manifest, energy, essentially. And the more you understand about all the, various paranormal things that are ultimately are all demonic deceptions, right? Whether if you understand how the UFO phenomenon, people are seeing things in the sky, that people are having abduction experiences, whatever. These are energy manifestations in the physical realm from the spiritual realm. People who get into ghost hunting and paranormal research, and they go out and they're actually looking for things like electromagnetic fields and sounds and so on, like physical manifestations of what they believe are deceased spirits or psychic impressions of some past event or whatever. Or you even have things like crop circles, or government projects where they experiment with quote unquote psychic abilities and remote viewing and things like this. All of these things that are being demonically powered and engineered, or, demonically guided. But the deception works because the humans participating believe in a false conception of what they are dealing with. So if we understand all of that put together, how crazy is it to stop and ask how difficult it would be for such entities to do things like manipulate a single quote-unquote photon in an experiment, or subatomic particles, whether it was at CERN or in any of these famous experiments that have led up to CERN, such as the extremely famous double slit experiment. How difficult would it be for these quote-unquote scientific results to be manipulated by the other side in order to supposedly confirm things like quantum entanglement and non-locality, on the quantum realm, so that now we have this debate going on. Now we have this mysticism and New Age spirituality enmeshing itself with what was previously called materialistic science, and how this atomistic worldview that was spawned by mystical spirituality is now coming full circle. It's hard to see that as a coincidence at all at this point. Anyways, that's my thoughts.
Today, science tells us that the essential nature of reality is non-local correlation. Everything is connected to everything else. That there's hidden creativity. There are quantum leaps of creativity. That there's something called the observer effect, where intention orchestrates space-time events, which we then measure as movement and motion and energy and matter. And addressing Sam, we can have a personal relationship with this intelligence, because we have a consciousness that is part of the sea of consciousness. Rumi, the great Sufi poet, said, you're not just a drop in the ocean, you're the mighty ocean in the drop. And all you have to do is understand the principles of science and understand that you have within you the resources to intuitively grasp this mystery. But
make sense of the world only if we base the world on consciousness. World is made of consciousness, world is consciousness, consciousness is the ground of being. Quantum physics makes this as clear as daylight.
If you want to see fear in a quantum physicist's eyes, just mention the words, the measurement problem. The measurement problem is this: an atom only appears in a particular place if you measure it. In other words, an atom is spread out all over the place until a conscious observer decides to look at it. So the act of measurement or observation creates the entire universe.
Today, a young man on acid realized that all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration, that we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There's no such thing as death. Life is only a dream, and we're the imagination of ourselves.
And this is exactly what mystics have been trying to tell us for so many years, that the world is an illusion and that the real world and universe is a non-physical.
Light trains have to be returned to their starting point faster than light. So behind the scenes, extraordinary things are happening which we cannot use personally. And this is a dilemma. I don't think we have a good way of looking at it. It's as if somebody was playing a trick on us. It's as if somebody was playing a trick on us.
The astonishing nature of what's been found in quantum physics experiments, say, over the past 8 decades. On an atomic scale, scientists are finding that particles seem not to appear until they're observed. It's suggestive of all kinds of incredible and extraordinary things, and quantum physicists are rightly concerned that New Agers or people like me should not be seizing upon. But if you move forward several generations as you get into the 20th century, really for the past 80 years, and really right now in our generation, experiments in quantum physics have reignited people's religious or mystical imaginations. It's almost impossible to overstate the strangeness and the peculiar nature.
And not just accept them as given. If we are to explain them, we are obliged to invoke something like actions going faster than light from one place to another. It's as if somebody was playing a trick on us. It's as if behind the scenes. Imagine, for example, that you have a railway system. We know that the trains cannot go faster than light, but you might, by studying the timetable very carefully, discover that during the...
on these things to say, aha, look, evidence of everything the Renaissance occultists were interested in. Because quantum physicists themselves don't understand this material. It's the challenge of our age. It's the mystery of our age.
The brutal fact is that Aspect's experiment confirms quantum mechanics, and it confirms it in this very peculiar situation. So that I'm obliged to admit that the quantum correlations exist in the world, and if we are to explain